Hey y'all, my name is Kalisha Lachey and welcome to the channel. I am excited to pretty much start this geared towards um, coaches, creators, entrepreneurs who are like just starting out because as a coach myself, as an entrepreneur, and having been at this a while, I'm like, man, I really wish I had some of these lessons. And so I am taking you guys on a journey with me. Um, and so today I wanted to specifically talk about what nobody tells you about, like how to get like unstuck as a creator, a coach, a entrepreneur. Because I feel like sometimes we get to this point where we kind of feel like we're just scattered, right? Like it's like we're doing things for our business, we're maybe posting or creating these ideas, but like we just don't feel like we have the momentum that we want. Um, Maybe we're not getting the clients that we want or the engagement that we want, the sales, whatever it looks like. So because I've been through it and still go through it, this journey as a entrepreneur, as a content creator, as a coach, this is like it's like if you choose to be in any of those realms, like you are choosing to be triggered, right? Like you are choosing to do the healing work, the personal development work, because being an entrepreneur, being like a content creator, the coach, all of these things, like they're going to trigger you. They're going to bring out the shadows that like a lot of us have, maybe steered away from since like we were younger, growing up, or whatever the case may be. But if you have a business or you're trying to do this thing for real, listen, it's gonna come out. Okay, it's gonna come out. So I wanted to just dive into this today and give you just the real talk and some practical shifts that I think is not like really out there in the media of what they talk about. I know like I see a lot of posts and they're like, oh, just keep posting, just do it. Okay, but like let's be realistic. Sometimes that's just not enough motivation to actually like move you to action, right? So, anyways, today we're talking about getting unstuck. And this is just a way that I think helps. And this is something that I work with my clients with specifically that I've seen to make um major shifts and create that momentum that I know that's why you're on this video. But I want to take you back here, take you back with me a little bit. Um, because when I first started, right, like my thing was I grew up always having this passion, this drive, this purpose to like want to, like help people. I've always like everything that I've done in my life, now that I think about it, growing up, I wanted to be a nurse and then I went into the army and I became a medic. I decided I wanted to, like, that's where I got to see, like, oh my gosh, people have these medical issues, these physical issues, but I realized it starts energetically, it starts mentally, emotionally. So that got me interested in psychology. And so I went, I decided to get in school, and I'm still in school to be a clinical mental health counselor. So, like, everything, I worked for the Veterans Crisis Line. Like, literally everything has been about holding space, helping others, right? And so when I got intentional in this space a few years ago, and well, a few years ago, but like last year's really when I like got into taking action, right? So I started with the podcast. I had talked about doing a podcast for freaking years, okay? And when I was getting my undergrad at Georgia State, I actually they had a studio, like a podcast studio, free for students. Did your girl use it? No. I walked by it so many times and I was like, this is so cool. One day I'll do it. The day never came. Got my, I graduated and finally I think I ended up like going to some event and there was a speaker and he basically was like, listen, some of you guys are here sitting on an idea. Like he was like, some of you guys are sitting here uh like he was like 9 months pregnant with an idea. And I think he probably used more months. But anyways, like, and it just, but it hit me. it like really resonated for me. And I was like, dang, I immediately thought about the podcast because I'm like, I've talked about this for so long. I love to talk, I love to help people, da 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 da. Still didn't start the podcast, not until a few months later. I really like started to get into it. So I finally did it, and I started the Trigger Warning podcast, and it is on all platforms. I started. I got with a co-host, my one of my girlfriends, and we just started it like on Zoom, just hitting record, talking about topics. We did it a little different, where we started to do monthly live episodes. So we would broadcast it on like Facebook Live or TikTok Live. But we also had a link so that people can join. So we had people join in on the conversations. And of course, Trigger Warning Podcast, the whole idea was, being triggered is not bad. This is how we grow. This is how we learn, how we heal. And we talked about everything like that a lot of people steer away from. We talked about the religion and spirituality. We talked about boundaries, trauma dumping, relationships, perfectionism, imposter syndrome, reparenting ourselves, all these things. Definitely check it out. I'll definitely have the link in the show notes if you want to binge old episodes because we are no longer doing that. And I'll get into that a little bit here. But life happens. My co host went back to school. Um, Shout outs to D Chanel there. And I had got to a point where I was like, okay, maybe I'll do it solo, or, I had a friend and he was like, oh, are you going to look for another co-host? And I was just like, oh, I wasn't even thinking about that. But the thing was, when that happened, I had also um, started a second podcast, and it did not start as like I wasn't planning for it to be a podcast. And but it's to this day we are still doing the podcast. It's amazing. And it's called Beyond the Usual podcast, and it's on YouTube, and we're about to get it on the other platforms as well. But it's so good, y'all. Like if you are here, if you are like trying to learn about yourself, if you are an entrepreneur, a coach, a creative, just a person like trying to be on their personal development journey, it is for you. Um, so, and again, that link will be in the show notes as well. But yeah, like, so I had started, we had had a conversation, met my friend, Paula Zay Anthony, that's who the co-host with Beyond the Usual podcast. And we had a conversation and we just saw like we just really aligned, we connected. And literally the second time we got together, we just hit record. And so it just became this podcast. This was my season of just really utilizing my throat chakra, talking about things that like my perspective on things and just, kind of healing myself out loud, really. And, along this journey between the two, like after I had started the Trigger Warning podcast, but before the Beyond the Usual podcast, I decided, hey, I want to actively help people, right? Like, so I decided like this is where coaching came in. And I turned like my personal pages into coaching pages. Like I just went all in. And it was with that same kind of like realness and tension. I created a whole program and did the work to get clients and all this stuff. And so with the when the trigger warning podcast came, and then like it happened where my co-host like had to go, and she was just like she had to be intentional about her journey. Like it also got me because I was realizing I had been putting my energy in all these different things, right? Like that um I was like, okay, I was also working at the Veterans Crisis Line at this time too. So I was just kind of like, I'm doing a lot. I had a toddler, had a teenager, and I just realized, okay, as I go, like it's not just about, oh, using my voice here and then doing the coaching here. I also had started, I am now in year 3 of I do a weekly text, like inspirational, thought-provoking texts for people, free service. Another thing, intentional healing, right? But I just got to this point where I was like, okay, I'm doing all these different things and they just seem kind of separate. I realized I needed to kind of like be more strategic with it and make it where, I mean, all of this should kind of be a path. And this was something that I just gradually, like, it took time to get there because I was just doing all these things and I felt obligated to them because this is so good and this is so good and that's so good. I had started a TikTok series with one of my close friends and a dating coach, Lakeisha. She's a intimacy and it's like intimacy and like relationship dating coach. And so we like that like has been really great on TikTok too. So again, I just realized I was doing so much and I kind of got to the point, especially with working at the crisis line, I was getting burnt out. I was really getting burnt out. And so I had to kind of be real. So when it happened at first, I was like, I hit up Lakeisha and I was like, this seemed perfect. Like, why don't you kind of like join me on the Trigger Warning podcast and we can kind of go from there. You know, we already talk about, we don't just talk about like dating and love and relationships. We talk about the healing stuff, like the old wounds, the mama and daddy trauma, right? That like we bring into our relationships and all these things. So it kind of like seemed to work out, but then life happened and it ended up where we kind of like I just kind of like said goodbye to Trigger Warning podcast, which was really hard for me. But I realized because I was doing all these things and I loved them, but I realized that there was something that was missing. It wasn't, I had to realize that passion isn't enough, right? To like drive you. And so this is essentially why what I wanted to talk about because it does not create sustainability, right? And passion is fine, especially if you get started, right? Like it's usually you see these new content creators pop up or coaches, and it's like, I want to help people, I want to serve, I want to do these things, and that's great. But you also need a path and you also need a strategy. Doing a bunch of different things is not going to be good enough to get you to where you want to go or where you need to go if you don't connect the dots, right? So I realized I needed to be intentional and strategic, and not just with business, but just with my life in general. Like, you know, my time, my energy, my money, like making everything work for me, not just keep me busy. So, and this is what I see a lot of times, right? I see that, and this is not just for entrepreneurs, this is anybody that's like kind of maybe they feel overwhelmed or they're, you know, they have a lot of things, especially like for me as a coach, like I would see all these other coaches and I would get like shiny object syndrome, you know. And I would be like, oh, I need to implement this and I need to add that. And oh, I create this because like this came up for me and this is great. Let me, and it just kind of keeps you scattered. It keeps you like you can be busy, but still kind of like disconnected, right? So, this is something that I wanted to talk about because this is the reason why most people get stuck, right? Um, and so if you think about it, there's a lot of businesses that you see. Most businesses they have like their mission statements, their core values. They put them on their website. They align their like business models with it. It ultimately is there to like guide every decision that they make, every overall goal. But most humans don't define their own values for themselves. And that's why I think so many of us end up like just kind of moving through life in autopilot and we're stuck in this like survival mode within ourselves and even in our business, even when we are doing things, right? Like we're busy, we're activated, we're showing up, we're serving, but it's like internally we're just kind of like we just don't feel like we're getting the momentum. um we're not receiving like the results of the output of time and energy and intention that we're putting out, if that makes sense, right? It's like we juggle all these hats, especially like we're a parent, we're a partner, we're a leader, we're a friend, we're a business owner. But if you don't know what you stand for, like your foundational principles, or you don't have a connection to a clear goal in mind. A lot of people don't think like, you know, what's in 6 months, a year, 5, 10 years. You're going to end up disconnected from yourself. And ultimately your like whatever the thing is, like as a coach, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, whatever. And that was the wake up call for me because I realized like I'm doing all these things, but like essentially everything that I'm doing should be feeding into this ultimate goal. It should be feeding into giving me like clarity and a clear pathway to having this sense of direction towards this overall theme that I'm trying to like tap into, right? And so this is what helped me to start changing it. I had to sit down and get really clear on my core values, right? Um, these are these are going to be the non-negotiables. And the thing is like when you know what you value and what you want, then even if it's just a direction, like, and I'm not saying this is going to give you like the perfect plan. No, but it's going to give you like a roadmap for your decisions, for your relationships, for your boundaries, for your business, for everything. Just like those businesses have their mission statements and their goals, their values, it's the same thing. Um, but a lot of us don't think of it that way. A lot of us are not taught to think about our actual values and get clear on our goals because we're so focused on like the immediate security of things. We forget about the long term. And I like to think of it as like immediate security versus long term freedom. And we end up getting stuck in routines or situations that just like don't really fit us anymore. We're just doing it. It's like that busy work that's not really moving the needle, right? And so we make decisions that are, oh, what's going to get me something like in the now versus make it so that it is going to help me get towards my goal for the future, even if it feels a little uncomfortable now. And, you know, I also want to just have this caveat too that your goals are going to change, right? Like as you grow, as you learn, as you get more data, as you heal, as you face, you know, different things in your business, as you get more clients, like things are going to shift. And that is normal. That is a normal part of the process. But when you have this like North Star, which are like your values, right? It's going to be so much simpler to say no to what isn't for you or even things that like it's going to make it easier to make decisions that like for me knowing my core values I was able to turn down what originally seemed like a good collaboration with a you know with a coach that but it was just like it just wasn't aligned. It wasn't there was no toxicity involved. It wasn't, you know, like a bad idea, but I realized this isn't going to get me the like you know one of my top core values is like personal development and growth, and I realized this isn't really going to stretch me, so I you know I had to turn it down, and it was very uncomfortable, but making that decision towards the long-term freedom versus the immediate like instant security. And so I want to pause here because I think it can be this it's like this kind of conceptual idea like core values goals, right? um and I want to kind of like take a moment to show you what this actually looks like for me, like so how I use like my core values and goals to make decisions and set boundaries and kind of like align my strategy in real life. So for me, my like I mentioned, my top one is personal development and growth. Another is like authentic expression, authenticity, and then community. When I got clear on those, I was able to finally understand why I struggle with certain things. Like for instance, as a coach content creator, like and I'm mentioning all these coach, content creator, entrepreneur. For me, they are one and the same because I started off saying I was a coach, which is you're becoming an entrepreneur, right? But then I didn't realize as a coach I was signing up to be a content creator. Mind blown, like whole thing, right? Because you gotta post, you gotta be visible. And so, but you know, anyways, I digress. But the point is, so when I got clear on those, I realized I struggled with certain types of content creation. And so I would see like certain types of other coaches that were successful and, you know, had the audience and all the things, and their pages were aesthetically pleasing, right? and I would see these ideas, right? And I just realized like I tried it and it took a lot of time. For instance, like the B-roll. And to this day, I still try it every once in a while, but it takes so much time for me. It takes so much time. Listen, I really struggle with it. And I really realized like trying to do that or certain types of like how to do content, right? Like not even just the style, but like what to say in it. Some of it I tried to implement because it was like, oh, these people have the following. Like obviously they know what they're talking about, right? But I realized I had to finally realize, like, listen, take the roses and leave the thorns. This is what my old like spiritual mentor told me. Like, everything's not gonna work for you, right? So, um, essentially, you have to take what works for you and realize, again, having the clarity on the core values. And I didn't look at it from this standpoint at first, but in hindsight, I was able to see, like, oh, this makes so much sense. I realized I thrive in talking heads, long form, which is like had two damn near podcasts, right? Like, and then the third series on TikTok because we were doing that weekly too. And so realizing that it was like it makes sense why that doesn't work for me. That's great, but it feels like extra work to have to record all these like different things and then like the voiceovers and don't get me wrong, I posted a few and like one of them I was so proud of it, but how much time it took like was ridiculous. And I was like this is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. So but because of authentic expression, which is why I see why like stuff like this or like being on lives, being on the podcast with my co-hosts makes sense why certain things didn't work for me. And now it helps me to see and get clear on what does work for me, right? So I thrive there. That's what I do. I'm also good with like writing. So even though I do utilize ChatGPT, that's my dog, I will create, and I'll edit to make sure it fits my style now. But like carousel, and I'll just use it and basically make it where as if I was saying it, it needs to feel good in that way. And that way when people read it, it's like they're talking to me. It's like I'm talking to them rather. Um, that is where I see that I really, really thrive, making content like just like this. And so it also makes sense with community being one of my top values, which is why I will end up doing my, I'm in it will my group coaching program in the future. It's why I see why I didn't just do the solo podcast because I really thrive on that like live raw like energy exchange between people and creating community. Why my first podcast we did the lives where we invited community in. It makes sense. um so I can see now why having like making certain business moves and things like that just either worked for me or did not. It just wasn't aligned with me. So that's one thing. Um, it also helps to look at what you're doing kind of like on the week to week with like I mentioned your content, your business tasks, your how you spend your time, right? Does this line up with my values or is it something that I just feel like I should do? Is this just like busy work? Is just filling my time, right? And then just redefining the strategy to you. I'm not saying cut everything that doesn't point directly to a core value. No, it's just finding what works for you and realizing if something is feeling super duper hard for you, you've tried it multiple times. I'm not saying scrap it, but this is time to get kind of like clear on okay, why is it? What specifically in this is not working for me? Do I need to just kind of shift the strategy about it? Or is it that I'm trying to do it like force a certain aspect of it? I'm trying to conform to a certain style of something, just kind of looking at it from that perspective, just getting really curious about it will help because for me, like again, authentic expression is non-negotiable. So I had to give myself permission to just focus on the talking head style reels, the long form content, the carousels, instead of stressing about, oh, I need to make my page aesthetically pleasing and have this B-roll and the, you know, listen, because I thrive in this type of setting here. like not just following a script, even though you see me, I'm trying to balance it out and have notes so I don't just go all the way off because your girl can talk. But just having that type of clarity will help to give you kind of balance. And, also like if you value connection, again, maybe you will thrive more on like community calls or, doing lives, doing collaborations, that type of thing. Um, Another thing is helping using your values to make the micro decisions. We always think about the goals, the bigger things, but it's also about every opportunity, every partnership, every client inquiry, right? Is going to get filtered through these like sets of values that you have. And if it doesn't fit, if it costs me for me, if it costs me my authenticity, if it causes costs my peace or my growth, because like peace is definitely one of my top values, it's not for me. I let it go. Even if it's sometimes I've had to let good ideas go, right? And that's how you find alignment. That is how you find that like inner sense of fulfillment, even when it's uncomfortable in the moment, right? Because like when I had to say no to that idea with the coach about because we started planning a workshop and everything, but I just realized I was like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. I was spending a lot of time thinking about it outside of like the actual like outside of actually like meeting with them. I just was like, yeah, no, I'm kind of spending too much mental real estate on this, so I know it's not a thing. But saying no to it in the moment, especially because like they were excited and all of that, it felt uncomfortable in the moment. So I will say that like real, alignment is good and it helps get us towards that goal of long-term freedom, but in the moment it may be very you may face a lot of discomfort and then even more shadows like the rejection, especially if you've ever had rejection yourself. You may feel like you're rejecting someone else. um Another thing for me that I like utilize my values in real life is letting it inform my boundaries, right? I think it's so important for this piece because it's not just about, oh well, this relationship works because it doesn't violate my values, but sometimes it's the boundaries, it's not the relationship itself. And so for me, growth is a value. And so I'll say no to things that just kind of feel like they would keep me stagnant, right? Again, the opportunity. If community is the value, I'm going to make time to connect with people, even if it means kind of like taking time away from maybe the busy work or other, things. I'm going to make time for it because it's a value of mine. I'm going to feel that sense of like disconnection if I'm not in alignment with my values. Um, Protecting my voice and refusing to kind of water down my message. A lot of times you hear all these like pros and gurus and things like saying like, oh, don't say this or say it this way. And I realized that just, listen, trying to be palatable to everybody, you may actually end up missing connecting with your people by trying to water yourself down. And it really doesn't do anyone any favors. So those are just some of the ways. But again, I just want to be clear that making these aligned decisions, aligning them with their values and your goals, does not always feel easy. It does not always feel safe, especially at first. And so just kind of giving you an idea, and this is just a personal thing, not with business. Well, I mean, it's kind of connected to business, but like when I left my federal job, right? It made zero sense on paper. um People were like, well, I don't want you to just jump the gun. It was the job that helped me make over six figures. It gave me a sense of security, right? Great benefits, all the things. But I was drained. And I realized it just was not aligned. I was dreading it in every way. Like at first, and it was exciting at first. Like I really enjoyed the job at first, but it just became too much. And it got to the point where even when I wasn't working, I was like thinking about having to go to work, and that was draining. I was just like, I used so much of my like PTO time off because I kept coming like every month, I kept coming in cycles of burnout. And I was just like, yeah, this isn't, this isn't it. And so I was coaching and I realized I was like, you know what? This is kind of felt like my sign. Not to mention stuff was happening in the, political world and stuff, and people started to get laid off, and there were all those like scares and stuff like that. So like I just was like, you know what? I'm not about to let somebody like drive me to make fear-based decisions, right? So I was like, you know what? I think this is my sign to go all in on my business and do that. However, and I'm not saying that to say go quit your job and become the content creator, the coach. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you it's going to take that nervous system work, because even though I felt that it was an aligned choice for me, like I was very clear, I didn't just make it willy-nilly. I had to do a lot of nervous system work to feel safe enough to to make the decision. I had to regulate even after I made the decision, sending the letter to my supervisor. I had to regulate, right? It took a lot of self-trust, a lot of just, emotional regulation to make that move. And I think nobody talks about, well, I ain't gonna say nobody, because I'm sure there's somebody out there. I'm not the first person talking about this, but you know, I don't think it's as broadly talked about how uncomfortable it can be to make those aligned decisions sometimes. Um, Especially again in the beginning. Like your brain and your body are going to try to talk you out of it because they are made to keep you safe. Like your body and your brain don't want to not feel good. It doesn't want to not have answers. It doesn't want to not know what is going to happen next, right? Like, and that's what I was doing. I was taking a gamble at I don't know what's going to happen. Hell, I had a few clients, but I'm like, maybe I don't get clients for 6 months. Who knows what could happen? So your brain and your body are going to try to keep you out of situations that are going to feel unsafe. But sometimes that is the price of long-term freedom. And fortunately, I was at a point where, and because this is the work that I do and that I help clients with, that I understood that. But I did not regret it. It felt amazing. And once I made the decision, I felt this sense of just relief and all of that. But again, I wouldn't have been able to make the decision if I was not able to look at my core values and my goals. Like I already had the goal of being full-time as a coach. I knew my core values, but I just was like, is this the time? Right? Like, and I have bills, I got kids, I have things that I need to do, right? So it's like, hell, I had a lifestyle that I was used to. So all of this was, again, that instant more immediate security versus the long-term freedom. But again, it took me to know my core values to help me guide me to that decision that I am super still like proud of. And so I get this question a lot because it's like, okay, this is cool. Like, okay, so you're saying know my core values and goals. How can I figure out what they are, right? How can I get clear on what my core values are? So I'll give you a quick hack because I'm not gonna give you the full like meat and potatoes, as they say. Dang, I sound old saying that. But anyways, um, because this is something I actually go more in depth on in my private coaching container with my one-on-one clients. And then I actually have tools and strategies. I have a worksheet and everything that helps to really lock this in for you. So I'm not going to give out everything, but a quick way to kind of like get a little bit of an understanding about your core values is think about your triggers, right? The stuff that really gets under your skin, because most of the time that's going to point to a core value. Like I know like growing up for me, one of my things was my mom. She always like I felt like I lived my childhood walking on eggshells. It was like she didn't like loud noise, she didn't like surprises, she didn't like, she didn't like, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think. But like it was very, I don't want to say super sheltered because she did let us have a lot of freedom in other ways. But um anyways, I'm like literally losing my point here. But I realized like my mom was one of those people that she didn't like a lot of that stuff, but she would always like when we interacted, she would be quick to yell. She would be quick to like, kind of jump at our throats and stuff like that. And I realized like that was one of my triggers. And heck, to this day, I still don't go to a laundromat. I have to have a house, a apartment or something that has like the washer and the dryer because I refuse to go because like I have been traumatized from going there because we would want to like play and all these things and she was always yelling and it was always like do things right now like and it was always like snap 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 like right when I tell you to, right? Like as soon as she said it, if we're not like immediately moving, like it was like can I have time to even process what you just said, type of thing. And so I realized that because that was one of my biggest triggers, peace is one of my core values. Uh, Also, another one, well, this is not necessarily, well, I guess it still ties into peace as a core value, but another thing that I really love is I've realized like taking my time because I realized I always had to just jump up and be ready and always like doing immediately, right? Like it was always very fast paced. So I really love taking my time with things, making my coffee in the morning and like, just having slow mornings and stuff like that. That really helps me. So peace again is a core value. Accountability. My mom would always be like late somewhere, or she'll be like, "Oh, I'm around the corner," and like an hour and a half later, she shows up. And it was just like, so I really, really value accountability. So these are just some ideas to help you to use your triggers, things that come up for you consistently, whether it's from your childhood or, to now, um, that can point to a core value that is probably being brushed up against or violated. Okay. Another thing, look at your love languages. If you crave like maybe words of affirmation or maybe thoughtfulness, encouragement may be a core value of yours, right? Like um, quality time may be one, right? So like looking at those types of things and you can make connections to maybe um, like community, connection, like things like that. So and you can Google like core values and see like lists of them places just to help you. Like if you think of some of these things, if you look at your triggers, you look at your love languages and you're still like, I don't know what maybe core value this may point to, Google one of those lists. Again, I go deeper with my one-on-one clients, but um, we dig into the old wounds, all the things, the triggers and everything, because a lot of our values are actually they tend to like hide in places that we've been hurt or overlooked. That's honestly how I've made those connections. So if you do want to like get help like figuring yours out for real and then also help you to level up in your life, in your business, in your get clear on your roadmap, then I will certainly have my link to book a soulful success session and then we can, have a hour chat to just talk about where you are, what you want to do, and things like that. And we'll go from there, see if we're a fit to work together. But these are the things ultimately that will make your business and your own personal development sustainable. Not just something that sounds like impressive, just on the outside, but actually help to guide you on how you should move, how you want to show up. It's going to help you get clear on how you can make decisions that you can actually live with, and it's also helped me to see like this is why my coaching is not just based on mindset and it's not just based on like systems and strategy. It is helping you to live in alignment with your true self. Because a lot of us we're not walking around as our true selves. We are, we have all these masks that we wear, all these roles that we take on that it's not we haven't really integrated everything. Um and so with this, making these types of choices, though, again, the discomfort is real, but so is the freedom. so is the energy that you get back, the time that you get to reclaim. And all of these things will have these ripple effects into every area of your life, your relationships, your business, your mindset, your life, your connections, everything. Um, and so one of my clients, when I did it with her recently, actually, she was like really, really excited because she said it's something that she's heard about values, but she said she's never saw how it like applied so well into her life until we worked together and until I like kind of went into this with her. And that's what lights me up. It's like when somebody says like, "Hey, I shifted, you helped me see something from a different perspective." That is just amazing for me because I think we all know about like boundaries. We know about self-care. We know about mindfulness, but making it fit into your real life like on the day-to-day is another story. We know that we shouldn't overthink or people please, but actually like not doing the thing in real life when it comes time, it's that's a whole nother story, right? So this is where my expertise is helping people to actually like live what they know. Because I realize a lot of people, and this was just for me and my journey, which I'll go into my story more in future episodes, but from going to jail and being, a clinical mental health counselor and all these things, like I knew intellectually a lot of the things that I should do, but I was not living it. And so I that is what I've basically made my coaching container about. Um, and so, yeah, so learning that has helped me to get to this space where now my content, my coaching, my, weekly texts, everything is about showing you how to actually integrate these types of things into your life, into your business, and not just talk about it, not just like intellectualize it, but actually like apply it. And now it's all connected. So it feels like a pathway. Everything is leading to ultimately the goal is just the one-on-one clients, right? And eventually like um the group coaching program and things that I talked about, but ultimately the text, it's great. I put out value. The content, it's great. I put out value, but then I will still incorporate things like, hey, if you want to go deeper on this, just like this episode, book a call with me because we can do this. Because sometimes this is just more information, and then it becomes just something we put in our memory bank, but we don't actually like integrate and implement in our lives. Um, so just to kind of like wrap up here, if you want to get unstuck and build like real momentum, you just got to get three things, right? Get clear on your values, not what sounds good, because some of these, like see the list, you'll Google them, you'll see them, and some of them sound good, but actually what feels true to you. Align your goals and your values with align your goals and your strategy with those values, right? So everything that you do, your actions, the things that you spend your time and energy towards should be feeding those values. It should be leading to those goals, not the other way around. Not using the actions and just doing things here and there to like figure out the goal. No, we should be clear. And then setting boundaries and making the micro decisions to from like the mindset of your values in mind daily. And the thing is, you don't need to be afraid, right? To say no to what doesn't fit. Sometimes things are not right now because it doesn't align. Sometimes it could be a later. But this is going to be how you're going to stop feeling lost, how you're going to stop feeling stuck and disconnected and actually build the momentum. Again, so I will have, because I know we've talked about a lot today, I will have all the links in the show notes here from the old podcast because it's still live. Like you can still we put so much like love into that podcast. I think I call the trigger warning podcast my heart and the Beyond the Usual podcast my brain. I'll have the links for both. In the notes here. Also, if you're interested in like getting those weekly like motivational texts, super easy to subscribe. And I can actually reply to you as well. Like I've had people be like, "Oh man, this really hit," or whatever, right? Like I can actually respond to you, which is pretty cool. But it's super easy to subscribe. The link is there too. It'll lead you to the website to like click the link, and it'll take you to your messages where you can just text the word and subscribe. Um, and then also, if this is something you want to dig into for yourself, and maybe you have other areas, whether it's with business, life, your relationships that you want to, that you just realize like there's a lot of things that I got going on that are not really how I want them to be. I know they could be better, even if they're not bad now. Then book the link to book a soulful success session, and I'll see how I can support you so that we can help you get the momentum that you want. And I'm excited to like really start this because I have not like posted videos outside of the podcast episodes until now. So like I'm really excited to like start this series really geared towards like my journey, sharing like things that I've learned, mistakes I've made, things that I've integrated, tools and systems and things like that. And I have some exciting like new things that I'm going to be talking about, like big mistakes that new coaches and creatives make when trying to build an audience, how to actually show up and be visible. That is a lot of the work that I do with my clients. I talk about building our capacity, building our visibility, and building our audacity as well, to do the things that we desire to do, setting boundaries as a content creator and entrepreneur. Um, and then a bunch more just like behind the scenes type of stuff from my own journey and what's working, what's not working, and all the things in between. So subscribe, leave a comment. I would love to hear maybe any questions you have, or if you want to tell me that I'm just like this was a stupid episode and like you don't care. Engagement is engagement, okay? But I would love to hear like maybe a takeaway you have, or if you have questions, or what you're excited, or if you have questions about or suggestions about something I should talk about. But yeah, that's all for now, y'all. Like I'm excited. See you soon. Peace.